Minnesota governor charts path to reopening as political pressure intensifies. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has taken a hedge position in the mightiest of swing states as he seeks to handle the coronavirus pandemic, keeping his stay-at-home order in place while relaxing some restrictions on retail businesses after earlier moves to reopen golf courses and marinas. Buffeted by pressure from small business owners and Republican lawmakers, Walz allowed retailers and other non-essential businesses were allowed to offer curbside pickup and delivery, a move the governor's office said would put 30,000 Minnesotans back to work. Walz, a Democrat, has taken those steps even as COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and deaths continue to rise in his state. A former high school teacher and football coach who grew up in rural Nebraska and spent more than 2 decades in the Army National Guard, Walz has earned a reputation as pragmatic moderate, in part during his years representing Minnesota's 1st Congressional District. Catherine Pearson, an associate professor of political science at the University of Minnesota, noted Walz has not been as critical of President Donald Trump as other governors and that he faces a difficult balance overseeing a state where one party is in control of each chamber of the legislature. Initially, the Republican-controlled Senate and Republicans were pretty supportive of the governor, Pearson said. But as time has gone on, there has been a lot of pressure from Republican legislative leaders to reopen. That includes a GOP threat to block the state's bonding bill, which provides funding to projects all over the state and requires a 2/3 majority for passage unless Walz ends his emergency authority. Minnesota is just one of many examples of states where governors and mayors are struggling to find the right balance between safety and economic revival as Trump tries to move on from the pandemic before cases have crested. During a proclamation to commemorate National Nurses Day on Wednesday, Trump claimed the virus is going to disappear. Yet cases are continuing to spike in Midwestern states like Minnesota and Nebraska, as well as rural areas of the South, often tied to outbreaks in meat, poultry and pork processing plants. Trump, who has insisted on those factories reopening, referred to the so-called hotspots as fires and embers Wednesday. "I call them embers if it's small, or if it's a fire or a hotspot, we could put them out," he said. "But we can't have our whole country out. We can't do it, the country won't take it. I won't stand it. It's not sustainable." Stark economic reality in a state Hillary Clinton won by a mere 1.6% in 2016, Walz is viewing that same bind. Minnesota currently falls in the middle of the pack in the tally of coronavirus cases among the 50 states, but the key coronavirus risk factors are all on the upslope. During the week of April 18, Walz took a more aggressive opening posture by announcing he would permit golf courses, bait shops, outdoor shooting ranges and marina services to reopen with proper social distancing. More recently, he signed an executive order providing a framework for doctors, dentists and veterinarians to resume elective surgeries by next week. In a statement, he said he was enacting the change because Minnesota has made significant progress in building up critical resources to combat COVID-19, including procuring personal protective equipment, ventilators and increasing hospital surge capacity. "We're proud that this progress will allow our medical professionals to safely resume certain procedures to keep Minnesotans healthy and improve their quality of life," Walz said. But there is no question that the state is facing increased financial pressures as tax revenues have plunged. Earlier this year, prior to the pandemic taking hold, state officials projected that they would have a $1.5 billion surplus. That has now turned into a $2.4 billion projected deficit. Responding to the new budget outlook Tuesday, Walz said the forecast confirms what we suspected: COVID-19 will badly damage Minnesota's economy. "This will mean shared sacrifice among all of us," he said. "Hard decisions will be made. The stark economic reality is already forcing hard choices." In late April, a group of small business owners known as the Free Minnesota Small Business Coalition challenged Walz's executive orders in a lawsuit, arguing the closure rules have favored larger businesses. In the lawsuit representing a dance studio, a yoga company and several boxing clubs, the petitioners argue that Walz's shutdown order of March 25 unconstitutionally shut down some businesses, but not other businesses who present no greater public health risk. The government has failed to adequately explain its public health rationale distinguishing those businesses who are allowed to continue and those businesses, like the petitioners, who have been shut down, they argued. The lawsuit notes that sales at Target stores were up in the first quarter of 2020 because they were allowed to continue to operate, but other smaller stores selling the same products or services are closed under the executive orders. The disparity is apparent. Large corporations are favored over small businesses, the lawsuit argues. There is no evidence to reflect that large corporations can conduct themselves in a more socially responsible manner in the current health crisis than small businesses. Republican lawmakers also have kept steady pressure on Walz to reopen by highlighting the pain felt by small business owners. Senate Majority Leader Paul Gazelka, a Republican, has repeatedly argued that Minnesota can prevent the spread of COVID-19 while safely reopening Minnesota. When Walz extended the stay-at-home order in late April, Gazelka released a video message noting that some businesses in Minnesota are shutting down for good. We've got to figure out how to flatten that curve as well of businesses that are going out of business, Gazelka said in his April 30 video message. We have to do it, he said of reopening. If we are unwilling to do it, more businesses will die, and that spike will be more damaging than anything we've faced so far. Risks at meat processing plants still. The state is grappling with rising cases at the same time that it is trying to ramp up its coronavirus testing capacity. As of Thursday afternoon, the state had only conducted about 97,421 tests with 9,365 positive cases, according to Minnesota Department of Health data. Though Walz has touted a partnership between Mayo Clinic and the University of Minnesota to increase testing capacity, Minnesota's daily tally of completed tests ebbs and flows, sometimes falling short of the 5,000 tests a day goal that Walz said is the key metric to allow reopening. The University of Washington's Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation has also updated its model for Minnesota with the expectation that cases will now peak during the week of May 14. With 2,962 cases and 342 deaths, Hennepin County, which encompasses Minneapolis, has the most cases in the state. About 80% of the deaths from coronavirus have been in long-term care or assisted living facilities. One of the biggest dangers to Minnesota, along with many other Midwestern states, is the difficulty in controlling outbreaks in meat processing plants. In late April, Trump signed an executive order allowing Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue to invoke the Defense Production Act to force meat and poultry plants to stay operational to ensure the continuity of the food supply. But as more and more plant workers are sickened by COVID-19, it has been difficult to keep the industry operating at full capacity. The JBS USA pork processing plant in Worthington, Minnesota, reopened Thursday in a limited capacity after shutting down for 2 weeks. JBS officials said in a statement that the plant voluntarily closed on April 20 in an effort to combat the community spread of the coronavirus in Nobles County, which has the second highest number of cases of all the counties in the state. Minnesota Department of Health estimates that at least 490 of the plant's 2,000 workers tested positive for COVID-19. The plant handles about 4% of the nation's pork production. In a statement, JBS USA said the plant will reopen with reduced staff and expects operations to normalize over time as absenteeism rates decline in response to preventative measures in place at the facility and as team members clear any necessary quarantine protocols. During a recent appearance on CNN's Inside Politics, Minnesota Agriculture Commissioner Tom Peterson claimed the state has been aggressive in asking plant employers to create greater social distancing and instate safety measures like temperature checks for each worker as they enter the plant. Peterson said the state has also offered testing at the plants in order to everything we can to either keep the ones running in Minnesota or get closed plants back up and running as soon as possible. It's in all of our best interests for those plants to be running, but they have to provide safety for the workers, Peterson said. CNN's Diane Gallagher and Pamela Kirkland contributed to this report. Click subscribe to receive the latest news.